Well, as you can see, we are in the, at present, the easiest way of looking at what all the cycles are doing is to simply look at the semicircles. So here we are now. Okay, well, this is as of yesterday. And actually, I'm not sure whether it includes today's trading. I don't know. But here we are. Here we are now. What is the 54-month cycle doing? It's moving down. Okay, so the 54-month cycle is falling. All right, which is probably one of the reasons why, although the market's been moving up pretty much since October last year, it's been moving up and getting nowhere, right? Okay, it's been trying to get there, and it's creating a bit of a wedge or a triangle in classical technical analysis terms. Okay, yeah, there you've got a bit of a triangle. Okay, forming. So the 54-month cycle is falling, and we know that from taking a look at that semicircle. What's happening to the 18-month cycle? Well, the 18-month cycle is pretty much flat at the moment, and it's about to turn down within the next few months, but right now it's about flat. What about the 40-week cycle? The 40-week cycle, as you can see, is falling down. Okay. What about the 20-week cycle? Well, the 20-week cycle is flat. What about the 80-day cycle? The 80-day cycle is falling down. Okay, so if you are trading the 40-day cycle, and the 40-day cycle is my favorite cycle to look at in terms of end-of-day data and analysis, then you're looking at an underlying trend. In other words, the current 40-day cycle has an 80-day cycle that is pushing downwards, -1. It has a 20-week cycle which is neutral, negative. It has a 40-week cycle which is pushing down, negative, and it has an 18-month cycle which is neutral, and it has a 54-month cycle which is negative. Okay, so what's the story with the current 40-day cycle? Well, the current 40-day cycle has a short-term underlying trend which considers only the 2 cycles longer, which is negative, slightly negative, -1. Okay, it has a long-term underlying trend considering all cycles. It has a negative long-term underlying trend of -3. Okay, so that's what's happening right now. What one should do then, of course, is gradually zoom in and look at greater and greater detail. As I zoom, I turn off my semicircles because I find them a bit distracting. There's that last 18-month cycle trough in October of last year. Sentient Trader has positioned the 80-day cycle on the 29th of December 2011, and the most recent 20-week cycle on the 7th of March 2012, and it's useful to measure those cycle lengths. It's always very good idea to keep in mind not only what is the average cycle, but what is the most recent cycle length and so on. The most recent cycle length of the 20-week cycle was, in that case, 22 weeks. Okay, recent 80-day cycle was a almost perfectly nominal 69 days. Okay, and which means the previous one was a little bit longer. What are the average lengths of those cycles? Well, you can read them at the bottom right-hand side of the chart. Here they are. You can see that the average length of the 20-week cycle is 20 weeks. The average length of the 80-day cycle is 89 days. The average length of the 40-day cycle is 41.8 days. Now, bearing in mind Hurst's principle of variation, you expect those cycles to vary all the time, of course. So the fact that the average is 41.8 days of the 40-day cycle, the next cycle will be 41.8 days. It will vary, but the fact that people are divided as to whether, because cycles have been running long recently, whether that means the next one will also run long, or whether it means that in fact the cycle will return to the mean and will actually run short. That's a really interesting question, and the correct answer, I believe, has to do with underlying trend. So we consider the underlying trend for that cycle to determine whether the next cycle is going to be shorter or longer. But that's the discussion we'll have to have later. But as a matter of interest, we just worked out that the current 40-day cycle has a negative underlying trend. And what is the shape of the current 40-day cycle? Well, you can see it is already a bullish shape. It looks like it is already manifesting into a bullish shape. That, for me, is a danger sign. When we have a cycle that should have a short-term underlying trend, a long-term underlying trend which is negative, and it is showing you a bullish shape, okay, then there is the extreme danger that this shape will turn in the last leg into a bearish shape. So I would say you need to be very careful that the market is going to turn down quite sharply. I think you need to be very, very careful of that. But that's something for the experts to think about. I don't know if I calculated that underlying trend correctly. Did I? It looks as though I might have got that wrong. Anyway, let's move on. I might have made a mistake in my addition there, or my identification of the cycles. But it's very important to take a look at that underlying trend and make sure that you understand what is happening. So what is expected to happen now? Well, we zoom right in and we have a look at only the last month or so, and you can see here that the last 20-week cycle in the Australian stock market looks as if though it occurred on the 7th or 8th of March 2012, and since then, of course, the cycles have played out. There has been a 20-day cycle, and now another 20-day cycle, two very nicely shaped cycles, and now, of course, the market is in the process of heading down towards the next 40-day cycle trough. When is that 40-day cycle trough expected? Well, it's expected where that dot is, which is on about the 18th of April, but it could be expected as early as the 11th of March. It is synchronous with a 20-day, 10-day, and 5-day cycle. The 20-day cycle is expected as early as the 7th of April. So, in other words, over the Easter weekend. So it's likely or possible that the 40-day cycle will form a trough sometime next week or over the next 2 weeks. Okay, and then it'll turn up. Again, you must be very careful because this looks like a bullish-shaped cycle. And we have a long-term negative underlying trend, and so you need to be very careful of the fact that that the cycle might suddenly turn into a bearish cycle shape. Those cycle shapes, it's very important to watch them as they unfold. Okay. So what are we looking at here? Well, we're looking at the Australian market coming down and forming a 40-day cycle trough, and you can measure the bars there. Or something that I find very useful is I like counting the bars, so I display that over there. So you can see there have been 28 bars since the most recent 20-week trough or 40-day trough, which is a synchronous trough. So how many bars do we have left? Well, the average length of the 40-day cycle is running at 41 at the moment. If this turns out to be exactly the same length, then we've got 13 days, including weekends, remember, including weekends. So we've got 13 days until the trough would form if it's going to be an average cycle. If it's going to be a nominal length cycle, which is 34 days, then of course we've only got six days to wait for that trough to play out. What about the 20-day cycle? It's really useful to count the bars from the 20-day cycle trough, and there you can see there have been 12 days or bars since the most recent 20-day cycle trough. And so how many more can we expect until the trough that we're anticipating? Well, the average length of the 20-day cycle, as you can see at the bottom right-hand side of the chart, is about 20 days. So we're looking at about another 8 days before that trough is likely to occur. The nominal length of the 20-day cycle is in fact 17 days, as you should know, and so therefore about 5 days. So both of those cycles are telling us that we're expecting the market to move down to form a trough of the 40-day cycle, which is expected to occur sometime within the next 5 to 13 days. Okay, so that's your time period. I would certainly not be going long this market just yet. I'd be expecting the market to move down a little bit further. Let's wrap up today's our first Oz Trader Chat by speaking very quickly about trading. Let me turn on trading. And there we go. And you'll notice that Sentient Trader has done something interesting. Sentient Trader has issued a buy signal. Why is that? I've just pointed out that the market is moving down and going to form a trough. And Sentient Trader has issued a buy signal, a buy instruction. Why is that? Because when a market is moving down, okay, you need to be thinking about entering so that you can catch the next turn up. All right? Okay, so very simply, when a market is moving down, you're looking ahead and you're thinking of catching the next turn up and you're thinking of buying that market. That's why Sentient Trader is issuing a buy signal. Now, there are lots of complicated things to speak about when it comes to trading, so I'm going to call that a day for today, for our first ever Oz Trader Chat. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining me. I do hope you found it interesting. For our regulars, our expert users that I see amongst us, I hope you found it interesting, a discussion of a market closer to your hearts, hopefully, than the kind of markets we speak about during our usual trader chats on Wednesdays. Thank you so much for being with me today, and it's great to see many of you there, many familiar names. And great to see you there. For those of you who are new to Sentient Trader, I hope that you found it interesting, and I hope that it has piqued your interest in Sentient Trader and particularly in trading with Hurst cyclic principles. So thank you very much for your time, everybody. Thank you for being with us. Have a good and safe Easter weekend, and I look forward to seeing you next week when we'll be doing another Oz Trader Chat. Please let me know if there is anything specific that you would like to speak about in this particular Trader Chat, in the Oz Trader Chat. The Oz Trader Chat is designed to be of appeal particularly to people living within your time zone. If there's anything that you'd really be interested to speak about, analyses that you're busy working with, issues to do with Sentient Trader software, anything like that, please do let me know, and I will speak about it in our Oz Trader Chat next week. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your interest in Sentient Trader. Thank you for trading using Sentient Trader. And I look forward to seeing you again at our next Oz Trader Chat. Thanks very much, Craig. Thank you, Cheryl. Good to see you. Thank you, Alain and Evgeny. Thank you, everybody.